just go back to after January 6th of 2020 and how everyone associated with Team Trump was being banned. They couldn't get book deals. They were on blacklists not to hire them or allow them to do speeches or anything. And it was like out of the question. I remember on the second Trump impeachment, people were saying, don't be ridiculous. It's not necessary. He could never be reelected after this. Of course, you don't need to impeach him to prevent it. After all that and 4 indictments, and even today he's back at another defamation trial with E. Jean Carroll, who some jury found him liable for allegedly sexually assaulting and then defaming. The man, he does feel untouchable and indestructible and invincible in some ways. And that's what we saw last night, for him to come back and not just eke out a victory in Iowa, Stu, but crush it with over majority vote. I mean, it's a stunning, stunning political comeback.
And he's pulled off how many of these? It really is incredible, Megyn. You're right. And it's funny watching after the January 6th situation, it did feel like that. It did feel like many Republicans were even changing their view on Trump and maybe abandoning him as so many wanted them to. And it's funny. I mean, even the New York Times wrote just the other day in a very rare, somewhat positive piece about Donald Trump, was talking about how college-educated Republican voters came back to Trump. After January 6th, they really did leave. I mean, the base stayed pretty loyal to Trump through that period, but the voters who were college-educated, white suburban voters sort of abandoned Trump for over a year. It wasn't until March of 2023 when that first indictment hit, when they all came rushing back. At that point, you had a situation where Ron DeSantis looked like a real challenger, looked like it was potentially a really competitive primary. And the left, as they have done over and over again throughout history, overplayed their hand and decided that they couldn't just win. They couldn't just have a situation where they decided to beat him if he was going to run again. They couldn't do that. Instead, they had to get their legal system involved and go after him every which way. People get defensive when they see someone being targeted by the government like that, especially Republicans, conservatives, who looked at that and said, wait a minute, this is crazy. They're going to try to take him off the ballot. They're going to try to put him in prison. And the people who kind of didn't align with Donald Trump and probably are responsible for him losing in 2020 came back rushing in, supported him through this primary process, and it results in a blowout in Iowa.
Dave, what did you make of it? I mean, we've never seen anything like this, like Trump's resilience and the affection that a huge portion of the Republican Party, it's not all, has for him.
Yeah, I really wasn't surprised. That this was exactly what I expected would happen. Look, Republican voters like Trump. Stu's right that after January 6th, there was a cup of coffee when people were like, oh, no. But I mean, 4 or 5 days later, the polling was clearly showing that voters were still behind Trump. McCarthy and all of the rest of the politicians sort of fell in line. I will say this about last night, though. I think Nikki Haley is absolutely right that this is a 2-person race between her and Donald Trump at this point. And I'll tell you why. I want to preface this by saying I think Trump will almost certainly win the nomination. But I'm of the school of thought that there's a Rocky analogy for everything. And the analogy here is Rocky IV, right? Ivan Drago, unbeatable. He killed Apollo Creed. Rocky's getting destroyed by him. Rocky throws a punch and cuts him, right? The big Russian is cut. It's a bad cut. That if there is a chance to beat Trump, that's the only way. She needs to win New Hampshire. Maybe then people say, oh, this isn't inevitable, and she does okay. Look, it's a long shot. DeSantis doesn't even have that anymore. DeSantis really ought to drop out today and endorse Donald Trump.
All right, we'll get to all of those folks too, because I do want to go through each of them and talk about their future course. Trump last night on the stage was, he's got this gear where he can be kind of sweet and, soft in a nice way, not in a bad way. And he referred to DeSantis and Haley as Ron and Nikki. He praised Vivek. He had a kind word for Melania, who just lost her mom. In fact, we have a little bit of that cut. Listen here.
I want to thank some of the great people. We have so many senators. If I go through every name, we'll be here all night, and everybody's going to get angry at me. But the senators, the congressmen from Washington, they came down from all different states. I want to thank you very much. I want to congratulate Ron and Nikki for having a good time together. We're all having a good time together. And most importantly, I want to thank my incredible wife, First Lady, I'll say former and maybe future. But more important than Melania, I want to thank her incredible, beautiful mother who passed away a few days ago. And she's up there, way up there. She's looking down and she's so proud of us. And I just want to say to Amalia, you are special, one of the most special people I've ever known. Boy, did she take care of Barron. That's how he got so tall. He only ate her food.
It's nice to see Trump do those moments. He doesn't do a lot of those moments. You could just tell he was in a very good mood. I don't know. To me, it seemed like almost a page-turner moment for him. Like the nastiness between him and most Republicans, I think in a way was put to bed last night. I think the party knows it's inevitable. And I think already now you're seeing some tweets and posts on X from people who are diehard DeSantis supporters saying, it's time. Like, it's time. The money, the effort, the energy needs to go into supporting our obvious, inevitable nominee and fighting Joe Biden, not fighting amongst ourselves. What do you think of it? Dave?
Yeah, I think that's right, especially from the DeSantis side. I did think it was very interesting to watch DeSantis and Haley's speeches, right? Because DeSantis kind of blamed the media, referencing back to what you said about calling the race too early and stuff. He really didn't talk about Trump. Haley, on the other hand, really went after Trump, comparing Trump to Joe Biden, talking about how nobody wants a Biden versus Trump race, which, according to polling, is sort of true. The thing that's interested me is that Haley has no major social media presence, right? She ran much more of a sort of standard campaign. And Trump and DeSantis supporters are kind of like vegans. You know that about them within 5 minutes of meeting them. Haley voters aren't that way. I've met them. Everyone's like, I've never met a Haley voter. Well, I go out and talk to people. I've met them. They're
I know tons
not
of Haley
on
supporters.
X.
I completely agree with you. I've seen the same thing. I've seen people posting on X. I've never seen anybody post on here about Nikki Haley that likes her. Well, maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. But like, if you talk to any sort of quote mainstream Republicans, the odds are they're Haley supporters. Most of my friends who are Jewish Republicans are Haley supporters. Like there are obviously there's a huge number of Republicans who love Nikki Haley. You're right. They're just not posting about her on X all the time.
Yeah. And Megyn, I bet those friends are not up at 1 o'clock in the morning furiously, arguing with Anon bots about the 2024 election.
Right. Yeah. In fact, the group I just referenced is worried about their survival. So they got bigger things to worry about than X posts. They want somebody who's more hawkish like Nikki Haley. I realize it's a no-go for a large portion of the Republican Party, but it's nonsense to say she has no real-life supporters. Dave, what do you make of it? Because I think Trump was softer there for a reason. I really think look, in 2016, he was considered even more still. He was considered more divisive than he is now, I think, by Republicans at least. I think the Republican Party's a little warmer toward him today than they were in 2016, where they didn't want him. They couldn't believe this guy was taking over their party. Over 90% of the Republican Party came home for Trump in 2016. They came home for Trump after that divisive election. They're going to come home for Trump this time too. And I think that's what accounts for the shift in tone by him, not by Nikki, no, but by him.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of politicians go through this process, and when they're trying to win over votes, they're very endearing to the public. They're very endearing to their opponents. And then when they win, they have that temptation to kind of be like, yeah, in your face, I won. Trump is the exact opposite. When he has that approach, the approach that you played earlier, that's when he's 100% sure he's won. When he gets to that point that everything is in his column, he becomes this more magnanimous person. And he's very capable of that. I mean, at times, I think he should utilize it a lot more because I think it is really endearing to people, especially because he has that gruff, sort of offensive, in-your-face persona most of the time. When he hits those notes, they're actually really powerful. I mean, if you watch his last few weeks of the 2016 campaign, he was there often. And in his acceptance speech when he won the presidency, he hit that tone as well. And I think it was really well received. It's just interesting to see his power over the party now. You're right. In 2016, there was a totally different situation going on. I mean, there's a good chunk of the party that went to the polls. We talked to them day after day after day on the radio, who were completely holding their nose in November, going to pull the lever for him, thinking of coming up with any justification they could, the Supreme Court, something, anything they could to try to pull the lever for them. Most of them wound up doing it, but not happily. That was not the case in 2020. People were happy about generally the policies that he had pushed through and generally liked his presidency. And despite all of everything that's happened, the soap opera that has existed over the past few years, it has not shaken most of them. And in some ways, I think has really tightened the connection between Trump and his base.
True or false? Using your tax refund to pay off credit card debt is smart. False. Well, donewithdebt.com published a strategy designed to let you keep your hard-earned tax refund and reduce or eliminate credit card debt. Most Americans owe thousands in credit card debt that will take years to pay off, if at all. Done with Debt found that filing bankruptcy is usually not the answer, and taking out loans to pay off credit cards usually increases debt. When you engage Done with Debt, their legal experts and skilled negotiators will take on the credit card companies for you. Their winning strategies are designed with one goal: solve your debt situation quickly and permanently. First things first, chat with a Done with Debt strategist and explore your possible solutions. That will make you feel better. Some debt fighting strategies, though, are time sensitive, so you do need to move quickly. Call right away. Check it out now. For a free consultation, visit Done, D-O-N-E, with debt, D-E-B-T.com. Donewithdebt.com. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.